Alright, I figured I'd do a quick video update of where I'm at with the layout. A little messy, but it's going to be like that for a while, so I didn't bother trying to straighten anything up. This area here, these 5 tracks, this is the lower staging, considered Enola, Harrisburg on the plan. So we'll just do a quick walk around. The aisles are a little tight, as you can see. They're about 2 feet wide, maybe in some places, so not ideal for having a lot of people operating. But Stan was in a garage, basically a 2-car garage space with this, so he had to maximize his space. It's about I think his room was 20 by 20, or maybe a little less. My space here is a little bit bigger, so I could have stretched it out a little bit, but I decided just to build it as it was. So we come out of the lower staging and go into the first town, which on the layout would be Mount Wolf. So this area would be considered day, and then like Wago right at the exit of the staging. And then right here, this first switch would be going into Mount Wolf to one of the industries. This is going to be the New York Wirecloth compound here. 2 tracks in there. And this grade crossing, which I'll be redoing, I had to rip it out to get the sections back together. This is Chestnut Street in Mount Wolf. And then get into where the main section of Mount Wolf would be. Will be the factory will be here with this siding. The factory that's demolished as of this year, I think, or last year, I guess it was, in along here. If you remember the video tour I did before we started tearing the layout down, there'll actually be some houses along this backdrop. You won't even see this track here. That's going to be hidden. And continue on, still in Mount Wolf. This siding here is St. Regis paper, which is Georgia Pacific today. We continue on, just some scenery and house or something in this area, and then we'll go around into Emmetsville. And this is the coal trestle that's along George Street in Emmetsville, which was right about where this pole is. So I had to take this out, and I'm going to be relocating it just on the other side of this pole. So I'll have to rework the whole track. It's already a tighter curve, but we'll make it work. This is probably one of the tighter curves, this curve here. And I measured it, I believe it's still at least a 30-inch radius. So I've been testing with 85-foot passenger cars and 90-foot flat cars, and so far everything seems to be okay. I had a little clearance issues here and there, so I spread the track as far as I could apart in those areas. And then this is the actual town of Emmetsville, where the Emmetsville freight station will be somewhere where that Pico box is. And the this siding here will be for the Acme warehouse. And then these curves here come around into the area between Emmetsville and York. This is where Flower is today. And the tracks you see on the left are the 3 tracks that are in York Flour Mill. That's going to be probably the biggest single industry. This area here where all this stuff's laying is where the actual mill building is going to take up most of that space. So it's going to be a pretty large structure. And there's another industry spur coming off to here. And I'll show what's more of some of what the names of them are and everything. So continue on the main line, leaving Flour, and we're going across the Cadorus Creek here. This is a Black Bridge area. So I'm gonna rework the scenery a little bit in some of these areas. I've actually thought about, he has it kind of just going into like this cave kind of a area. I thought about knocking this down a little bit and trying to use like the mirror trick to make it seem like the creek will continue on a little bit farther. And after Black Bridge, main line continues on into Lower Laux. I say Lower Laux because there's Laux is split on the layout between the levels. So there would be a couple industries back here in this corner, and then the 2 main lines where it's just cork right there are going to continue on that hidden track behind Mount Wolf. So I'll go back around, kind of explain that a little bit more. So we'll come out of Laux, and then this track is going to be hidden behind the backdrops. So this will continue around the corner, and this track where it ends here is actually going to go into the helix, which you can see is in 2 pieces currently down here on the floor. And into the helix and around and up to the second level, which is in about, I don't know, 100 pieces or so still all around my basement. There's some out in the other room. So boxes of buildings and structures and everything. More pieces of the layout. That's the top staging there. So I've got quite a bit of work to do. I won't be able to even run a train around the bottom level because to make a continuous run, you actually have to go through the top level and everything like that. So I've just been relaying track in areas where this was all torn apart. For the most part, I got everything back together myself. I had the family help me out a couple times here and there, but most of the time I would just use like a couple 5-gallon buckets stacked up to hold a section up while I bolted the legs on. So Stan did these X legs out of 2x4s. Thing's pretty solid. Bolted everything together with carriage bolts and screwed everything back in pretty good. So it's pretty sturdy. I guess one thing, just add a couple more things. I'll try to keep this around 10 minutes or so. Here's the track diagram. I want to open this up quick and I'll do a quick overview. All right, so this is the lower level. We're come out of Enola, Tawago Junction, and then into Mount Wolf. See the wire cloth. There's the Mount Wolf Furniture Company, Wolf Supply Company. They have a little coal or a trestle to unload a hopper of whatever you want to unload there. And then the St. Regis Paper. And you can see on here he had it divided up into blocks, and I'm going to probably keep most of the blocks, but in my case they will be power districts for DCC or basically broken up so I could signal it or however I want to. And then after you leave Mount Wolf, like I said on the tour earlier, we went to Emmonsville, the station, the Acme Company, a few other things. And then there's the flour mill, Black Bridge, then Lower Loucks with the sand company, Newman Sand, and the AMF, which of course today is Harley Davidson, or what's left of those buildings anyway. And there's no sidings anymore. Then into the Helix, and like I said, that's about as far as what's actually put back together. And then Loucks Upper, when you come out of the Helix, you'll be going into that area where Yorktown Paper, that's right where about where Route 30 is. And then the Associated Wholesalers Grocery Warehouse, that's still there today. Siding still goes into the building, but I don't think they've gotten a car in quite some time. And then Windsor Street Yard's one of the biggest yards that's exposed on the layout, not counting the staging. So all kinds of engine service tracks, a couple industries right off the yard. That's Agway, and there's a cut over to the hit and return track up there. And then of course Poorhouse Yard, which is still there today. And there's York Safe and Lock. There's actually a few of them on the few York Safe and Locks buildings. And there's where the MPA crosses over. And into York, which is one of the busier places on the railroad, Duke Street Yard, the passenger station, see a bunch of the industries that are there, and pick up the Frederick branch as well, starting here. Then we leave York, and there's the Hespen Shade and Thompson Feeds. And that's a decent sized building on the layout. Into Grantley, and a little bit of Lincoln Yard, just mainly for interchange purposes. And into the top staging area, which he had quite a bit of things going on here. There's a lot of tracks up here. Like I said, most of them, this isn't really considered a scenic visible area, so it's just a fictional ending point to interchange cars to these places. So one other thing before I cut this off here, just want to show you some of the stuff here. Stan took pictures of his progress. This is him building this from the very beginning. I'm going to scan all these pictures at some point and post them on the Facebook group page, but they've been helpful in for me just to look at the construction in progress and just to see where some of the things went, stuff like that. So it goes on and on there with some of the buildings on that you saw in the other video, and there's a picture of Stan himself there. I know it's a little dark. I don't have good lighting in here yet. But he had great plans. I mean, he really had a lot of time put into the planning of this railroad. The track plan sketched out. He had all his blocks. He has diagrams for everything. There's wiring diagrams. He has the blueprints for the benchwork. He had everything laid out pretty well. So it's definitely come in handy when trying to put this thing back together. But that's a quick overview, as quick as I could be anyway. And next step is just doing some wiring. I figured it's going to be a lot easier to do the wiring, especially soldering on the track power feeders and everything without the second deck on there. So I ripped all the wiring out because it was common rail DC. So I decided it would just be better to start fresh with wiring. And I will get the bottom level wired up. That's kind of next on the list. And go from there. So once I get the track wiring done, I'll be moving on to some of the other stuff that's going to be easier to do without the second deck on. And we'll go from there. So just keep an eye on my progress on Facebook. It'll probably be a while until I do another actual video because there really won't be much more to see in the video. So that's it. The mess and everything. So that's it. I'll post more pictures updates. So if you're not on the Facebook group, just search for that. It's on Ryan's Crossroads or Ryan's York PA Crossroads on Facebook. So look it up. Send me a message if you can't find it. And that's it for now.